Good evening, everybody. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And this is Source Material Live. Joining me tonight from Honeysuckle Rose Creations is Darth Vader. What's going on over there, Alexis?
Hang on, let me switch to speaker. I think this thing's picking up too much of my breathing. Hang on.
A little bit.
How's that, better?
Yeah, much better. Much better, Darth. How you doing?
Breathing a sigh of relief after bribing my dog with a giant rawhide to get her to stop eating my legs.
Well, that's good. So we're talking about...
I want the show tonight to be interrupted with, so it's like, ow, about ow, and ow.
Yes, we don't want you to be in pain from dog bites. So tonight's topic is we are talking about the series Vision and the Scarlet Witch, A Year in the Life. And if you read it like we did in trade paperback form, it's actually called Avengers, Vision and the Scarlet Witch, A Year in the Life. And it includes one issue number 2, as a matter of fact, from the West Coast Avengers series, which I did read contemporaneously. I was a big fan of the West Coast Avengers back in the mid-'80s, 1985 to be precise. And I actually think I read a lot of these from back in the day. Either I went back and I bought the back issues from the comic book store, and then I would continue with whatever was on the newsstand or whatever. I loved this series. I was a huge fan, and Jesse knows at one point I was even pitching a West Coast Avengers movie with Wonder Man and whatnot, and that was before Disney Plus and WandaVision and all of that. I did not, however, read Vision and the Scarlet Witch, either the 4-issue limited series or the 12-issue one that we're going to be talking about tonight. And we are talking about it because we're finally getting to WandaVision this week. WandaVision wrapped up at the beginning of March, but between a bunch of movies that had come out at the time and then my week vacation and St. Patrick's week, we just had to put off talking about it. But we're finally here. We're finally doing it. And let me go over to you first, Alexis. This is the first time you're reading this. Were you familiar at all with the old Vision and Scarlet Witch solo books? Were you familiar at all with the West Coast Avengers?
Not at all. This was kind of a tough read for me, and I hate to say it because this introduced a lot of characters that I hadn't either never heard of or I was just not that familiar with. You talk about Wonder Man. I didn't even know Wonder Man was a thing until like a few years into my Comic-Con days. A gentleman came by our table cosplaying as Wonder Man, to which I looked at him like, Bruce Campbell doing a thing? I don't know what the hell you are.
Yeah, I was aware of Wonder Man. I was somewhat, like, when I went back and I read this series, you know, I'm in my mid-40s now, and it's been a long time since I've read this stuff, but I do remember the Vision being based in part on Wonder Man and Ultron, which they, of course, changed for the movies to he's based in part on Tony and Jarvis and Ultron and God only knows, and the Infinity Stone. The comic book version of Vision, he's like one part a synthesoid version of the Human Torch from the World War II era. He's one part Wonder Man. And I think even when I was pitching a West Coast Avengers movie, I had pitched the Grim Reaper as the main villain because I knew that he was like the twin brother of Wonder Man. So I was somewhat familiar with the backstory here. I was less familiar with the Scarlet Witch. I know as the years have gone on and we've been doing source material, I have not, as of this recording, read House of M. That's probably next on my list before we actually talk about the WandaVision series. But we did, probably around the time of Civil War, we did Avengers Disassembled, which was a big Scarlet Witch goes nuts and kills everybody book. Just what House of M is known for.
It's like flip a coin. Flip a coin. If it lands heads, we have an issue where Wanda uses her powers. If it lands tails, Wanda goes cuckoo bananas.
Yeah, pretty much. How much of Scarlet Witch were you familiar with? Like I said, I knew her from the Avengers comics, and in later years, I had read a couple of different things. I've never read her solo series, the more recent one. But like I said, I knew her as part of this team and as part of the Avengers. So what's your history with Scarlet Witch?
Not that much. I knew a little bit about her, embarrassingly enough, from the animated series. Not the X-Men 90s animated series, but from a mid-2000s animated series where most of the cast got kind of aged down, so they were actually students at Xavier's school.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there was an interesting arc where they brought in Wanda. Pietro was already with the Brotherhood of Mutants. And there's actually a really funny moment when she walks through the door and Pietro just goes, Wanda! And she starts flying. She immediately everything starts flying off the shelf. And I think it's Avalanche walks up and goes, let me guess, ex-girlfriend?
So reading this 12-issue limited series, you said that you were a little confused in the beginning. What was surprising to you?
Yeah. Like I said, I barely knew Wonder Man. I had never heard of Grim Reaper, never heard of Black Talon, never heard of Necra.
Yeah. I had forgotten about them. Like, I knew when I saw them, I'm like, oh, I remember Necra, I remember Black Talon now. And we know Man-Ape from the Black Panther movie, different version. Way different version in the comic books than what we saw in the movie.
He knows how to cover his ass and not use and not name his character Man-Ape.
It's funny. And I wrote to you. I read a couple of pages into either the first or second or third issue of this, where Grim Reaper goes all racist on Man-Ape, and I wrote to you and I was like, "Wait till you get to this part of the book. This is not aged well at all." And it's not like it's presented as Grim Reaper's in the right, and it's like, bad luck. But it's one of those where no one's paying any attention to it, and there's no agenda to try to get this taken off the shelves. But if somebody with an axe to grind notices it, this book's never going to see the light of day.
I think it's interesting because, he is horribly racist, but the characters acknowledge, oh my God, you are a total bigot, and it ends up being his undoing when Black Talon and M'Baku are essentially like, oh, you're going to be racist, fine, screw you. It's like, screw you, we out of here. And they leave him without a zombie army when he has literally, screw you guys, I'm going home.
My favorite part of that is and we're skipping a little ahead here. We'll tackle this issue by issue, but I did want to just get this out of the way because I was laughing at it because one, and I've complained about this with Jesse. The sweet spot for reviewing comics for me is the 90s and the 2000s, between 1990 and probably 2010, as far as kind of going back and reading stuff that's not so old like this is, or the Kree-Shi'ar War, or we did like the Coming of Galactus, I think, the Trial of Galactus, around one of the Fantastic Four. No, it was the last Incredibles movie. We did that. It's just like some of the stuff, the writing, it's almost like when you read Shakespeare, or you read the Bible, or read something that is written where you understand the English words, but the prose style is encumbering and dense, and it's not what we're used to in 2021. And so I have difficulties with this era and earlier, like especially the 70s. Ugh. The way some of these characters talk.
I am totally with you there. In fact, I was kind of thinking the same thing. I mean, you get this one moment where Vision and Wonder Man are going into, I guess it's like caverns or something, to go after the Grim Reaper. And they're talking about how it's like, yeah, we have to fight and we have to hurry. But they clearly have stuff to have a deep heart-to-heart talk, acknowledging that they are technically brothers. And they have this panel where they're just standing there embracing each other and hugging and everything. And I'm like, bad guy escaping. What happened? Time and place, boys. Time and place.
I'll tell you what, the worst offender as a character with an overly long prose style that drove me up the wall was Quicksilver. Ugh.
Oh, yeah.
That man made Reed Richards seem like he spoke in haiku. The way they wrote him in this. And I get that that's part of his character, but it's like I said, it's a prose style in comic books that goes away in the 90s and never really comes back, unless you're a particularly wordy writer. Then it just, like, I was thinking about this as, I put my before we started recording tonight, I put my Goodreads review on here, and I was like, I liked the concept of the book. I liked the stories in the book. It's just a bit of a dense read because the prose style is so wordy. And it makes it a harder read than it has to be, because when you think about what's actually going on in these books, it's not all that complicated. This is not a hard story to read through, but there's so much dialogue, and then it's crammed with comic book narration and overly long prose, and it's like, ugh, after a while, like, I was just kind of scanning through it, and I'm like, words, good, we're done. Like, that's what happened to me.
That's actually why I was so behind on reading it, because I had planned to sit down last night and get through the bulk of it. It put me to sleep.
Between this and Zack Snyder.
Yeah, I was listening. I was sitting on the couch, computers on my lap. I've got jazz music playing in the background. I'm like, and I can't focus.
All right, let's get into it before we lose daylight here. So it's 13. It's 13 issues. The entire trade is 13 issues. It's a 12-issue limited series plus one issue of the West Coast Avengers, and we'll just briefly hit on each one of these, and that'll be the podcast. So our summaries come from Comic Vine, such as they are. He is a synthetic man. She's a mutant sorceress. Once they were outcasts, but now they have each other in a love which can withstand every danger they face. Steve Englehart and Richard Howell present Vision and the Scarlet Witch, 1985. And these events are continued from the events of Avengers and West Coast Avengers #1. Vision is under study at Project Pegasus following Vision's attempt to take over the world. Scarlet Witch grows tired with the delays and busts her husband out. They quit the Avengers and move to Jersey. Their relocation is far from idyllic, as they are soon attacked by zombies, Necra, Black Talon, and Grim Reaper. So, right away, you can see where, at least in small parts, we have nods from this book to the WandaVision series. The most obvious one being it takes place in Jersey.
Yeah, it does kind of wish they had kept Gyrick as the antagonist. I know that he's often more paired with the X-Men, but he is such a hateful character. I think it would have been a lot more interesting to have him on the show. But again, he's a character I am very familiar with. So seeing him as the one who wouldn't give up Vision's body and was being a total dick was like, okay, if anything happens to him, I am not going to shed a damn tear. I also love that we get a little bit more of a visual idea of Wanda's powers. So many people I talk to really don't get what the concept of altering probability means. And frankly, it is kind of a weird thing to explain. But I love how, there's a door that won't open without a precise code. She's able to open it because she can, essentially alter the probability to have the code enter in. And then she's able to age a door to rust so she can break through it.
Right.
So you get a little bit more of an idea of that. And then, of course, she gets in there after we get a very long backstory of Vision discussing where he came from and everything, along with probably more than a few people going, wait, the Human Torch was in World War II? What the hell?
Yeah. Yeah, again, if you don't know the Invaders' history, a lot of this, or even, recently discussed Avengers history, you're like, wait, what? It's a hard book to come in too cold, because it really does play on a lot of the contemporary comics of the time on the Avengers side, and somewhat the X-Men. One of the things I like about this going into it, and it's funny because people, if you pick this up after having watched WandaVision, you're like, oh, these are fun characters. I want to check out some of the books they've been in. And, you walk into a bookstore and you're like, well, okay, WandaVision, Vision and the Scarlet Witch. This seems like it would track. And so much of the series obviously focuses on Wanda. And I don't want to get too much into that because we're going to talk about it later this week on TV Party. But you would think reading this book, this would be a lot about Scarlet Witch. It's actually at least a third of this entire series deals with Vision and whether or not he's a real boy. There's a lot of, and I like this element of it. There's a lot of
Marvel loves them a good Pinocchio analogy.
There's a lot of Vision sort of struggling with identity and like, well, you know, I'm a mishmash of all these different things, and if I don't mute all my chats,
Hey, if it's not your chat, it's my dog's barking. I wouldn't worry too much about it.
he's struggling with identity, and he, you know, it's like, well, what am I? And I like that. I like that as a theme. I like that as a theme, as a general theme in literature. You know, I often talk about, does this series or does this movie speak to the nature of man? Is there a character struggling with identity, meaning of life, those sort of things, these sort of big, heady issues? So right there, I'm into the book, and I'm into the Vision as a point of view character, because he's sitting there going, well, I'm part Ultron, I'm part Wonder Man, you know, I'm part Human Torch, I'm this human brain in a plastic body, you know, I'm a black man in a white man's world. What am I? And
well, his brain was essentially patterned after Wonder Man's, but it's not identical to Wonder Man's.
Right.
So
there's a lot of him over the 12 issues, but definitely in this first issue, it's a big part of it, of him going, I need to really sit with myself, and figure out just who the hell I am and what I mean to the world. And then you get this other bit that's like right out of WandaVision, where you know, the Scarlet Witch is like, look, I don't give a shit if he thinks he's a toaster or if you think he's an atom bomb. He's my husband, and I'm taking him home. So there. And you get these early allusions to Wanda being somebody who's just on that cusp of being somebody who, if you push her too far, she's going to go, as you put it, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and destroy the world. So it's like, so right off the bat, I think you have some very interesting elements in this comic book. What did you think of issue number 1?
I did enjoy it. One of the things I really liked about it was that while we did have that extremely long extemporaneous speech about Vision's background, notice that there's at least 1 or 2 panels on each page that show Wanda continuing her walk. And right. I really like when artists do that. It's like, yes, it's important to lay down exposition and plot development, but there's still something else happening that's important. And I like that it's not going back and forth too much. She's not talking in those panels. You just see her walking or hexing someone away or something. Because we don't need dialogue out of her, especially since Vision is on do not shut up mode. So I really like that they include that. I thought that part was well done.
So the next part of the trade and the continuation of this storyline with the Grim Reaper, Necra, Man-Ape, and Black Talon continues in West Coast Avengers number 2, which comes out in November of 1985. It's called Sons. And who is Wonder Man? Why is his fate tied to Grim Reaper? The West Coast Avengers discover the truth in this shocking saga that wraps up in The Vision and the Scarlet Witch number 2. So...
for a split second, though, how hilarious it must be to have 2 Avengers in full costume walk into a real estate office and say, we want a house.
So I'm glad you brought that up, but can we put a pin in that and discuss the Thanksgiving comic then? Because that's that is my favorite issue out of all of these, and it's partially for that reason because of how absurd that is.
Okay, yeah, you know what? No argument there. I just always loved, like I said, I just saw them and I'm like, hi, we want to buy a house. And it just like, they're acting like, well, this is awesome, you know? I mean, yeah, we'll talk about it in the Thanksgiving because I just thought this was the funniest freaking thing in the world.
That is, though, something that comes...
And I would move there in a millisecond.
That is something that does come up in this. You know, the X-Men books are known for dealing with a lot of socio-political issues in terms of like racism and homophobia and all of that. You know, the X-Men being sort of an analog for homosexuals and struggling in the world and all of that. And of course, there's a little bit of that going on here with Vision and the Scarlet Witch because you have a mutant and a robot, and they move into this, you know, very white, very middle class town, and they're like, no thanks. There's the immediate, like, you know, like wanting to redline and push these people out and like, we don't want them here. And I think like the real estate agent's like trying to sell them a house. And it's like, hey, I'm just trying to sell a house here. And they're like, don't fucking sell to them. What's wrong with you? We have a nice little idyllic town here. What are you bringing trouble in for? And he's like, because everyone deserves to, you know, have a piece of the American dream. That's why. But I thought it was interesting that they spent a couple of issues dealing with that as well.
Yeah, although I hate to say it, obviously I will never be on the side of discrimination and hatred and such, but considering the fact that the first day they looked at the house there was friggin' zombies, you can't help but feel a little bit for the neighbors, you know? I mean, it'd be like the first day I moved in and then all of a sudden, I don't know, Eddie got out and tore up a neighbor's flower bed or something and be like, yeah, really not, putting the best foot forward here.
There's a great line in Civil War as espoused by Vision, and he was like, in the years since the Avengers formed, there have been exponentially more crisis and emergency and destructive situations. I'm paraphrasing. And, and he was, and there's like, well, do you think we caused it? And he's like, no, I don't think we caused it, but we are a power, and other powers rise to oppose us, and the more powerful we are, the more of us there are, the more powerful forces come into conflict with us. It's just a natural course of things, and I think I thought it was a great line and a great point. It's one of the reasons why up until the third act, where everything kind of goes off the rails, which we have talked about ad nauseum. Hello, Andrew. Civil War, up to that point, is really one of my favorite Marvel movies because I like when they deal with real world consequences of what it is they're doing in this super fantastic world. There's
actually there's a line in Batman Begins that kind of goes the same thing. After the bat signal is built, not yet Commissioner Gordon is talking with Batman about escalation. Says, we buy. They start wearing Kevlar. They start buying armor-piercing bullets, and you're running around wearing a mask. And that was actually something I felt that so many shows that try to do a new version of Batman fail on. That when Batman first showed up, he was just there trying to take out smaller criminals and the mob. The costume freaks didn't really start showing up until he showed up. This is why I could never get into the show Gotham, because I looked at him like, it makes no sense.
No, Gotham sucked.
It's like it makes no sense for all of these characters to show up when Batman is a kid.
Yeah, that was my problem with Gotham too, because the people running the show didn't really understand Batman's lore, or what the appeal of the Batman comics was. They just knew these characters were popular, and they wanted to do a Batman show without having to use Batman because they weren't allowed. And that's why the show sucked.
Yeah, every time I saw a promo for that show, I felt like they were making it for anyone who wanted to replicate that scene from the first Avengers when Captain America goes, "I got that! I understood that reference."
Yeah. One of the best Batman books, just to put an exclamation point on this point, and we can move on. The Long Halloween, where at the end, after Batman's taken out the mob, and the mob has taken itself out, as that story goes, and there's that one splash page of all of the costumed villains, and it was like, you created this vacuum, we weren't here before, but you took the entire mob off the table and you left this empty space for us to fill. And so you see like Joker and Riddler and Mad Hatter and all that, and it's like, that's always been the Faustian sort of bargain with Batman. The great irony is that, and it's something that good writers have often struggled with. Good writers have often made Batman the character struggle with throughout various stories, is that, did I really save Gotham, or did I just change the danger?
Kind of reminds me of the trial episode of the animated series where they discuss whether or not Batman actually was responsible for creating the villains.
Right.
But in the end, District Attorney points out that their rise into becoming villains, Batman had nothing to do with it, but the gimmicks didn't. She said the gimmicks probably would have been different, but you all still would have gone into this. You all still would have chosen crime. And I like that because it's like, I don't believe that Batman caused the villains. I believe he created the gimmicks. I believe that he was, the rise to that sort of thing. And again, going back to what Vision was saying, that them being there invites a higher form of what was the line from Thor in the first Avengers? The fact that you guys just have the Tesseract as a sign to the other realms that you're ready for a higher form of war.
Right. So the West Coast Avengers issue, sort of a continuation of what's going on with Black Talon and Ultron and whatnot. I think at this point they've sent Ultron. They had him, they lost him, they sent Ultron to go back and get him, and so the issue ends with Ultron attacking the Quinjet that Hawkeye has got everybody in, and that's where we pick up Vision and the Scarlet Witch issue number 2, which is the conclusion of this three issue story arc. Go ahead.
I'll say that was a great frame, but I'm not going to lie. Again, much like you, I was kind of skimming through a lot of the text, especially this issue, because we got a lot of backstory that they wanted to cover.
Yeah.
And yeah, and when Ultron sticks his head in front of the windshield and he goes, "Not likely, Bowman." I misread that and I thought it said "Not likely, Batman." I had to do a double take. Like, wait, what book am I reading?
Yes. The infamous Vision and the Batman love story.
Kind of reminds me, there's an episode of Superman when he meets with Lobo, and Lobo does the same thing. And, ducks his head in front. Apparently he's on the top of the Superman spaceship, and they just sort of ducks his head, and he's like, "Hi there." I love a villain with a good sense of humor.
So issue number 2. The Quinjet carrying Hawkeye, Tigra, Iron Man, Scarlet Witch, and Vision is attacked by Ultron 12. The Quinjet is badly damaged and crash lands. The heroes wake up as the prisoners of the Grim Reaper along with their missing teammates. The Grim Reaper wants to extract the essence of Simon Williams and Vision and deposit it in another body so that he can have his real brother back. When Simon is released from stasis, he attacks the Grim Reaper, and Mockingbird helps bring the security field down. Ultron escapes, Grim Reaper dies in a terrible fall, and Vision asks Wanda if she wants to have children. So this is what we were talking about. I neglected to mention this before. My favorite part of Grim Reaper's crazy racism is he called like Manape, I think, like a black savage, and and Manape was like, "Oh," and like ran off to Black Talon. He was like, "He called me a savage," and Black Talon's like, "Well, that's bullshit." And they're like, "Let's be nice to me." Yeah, it's like, let's not work for a crazy racist. And Necra's like, "It's your issue with black people. I'm black," and he's like, "You're albino. It doesn't count." I had a good laugh at that, because, like, jokingly, that's something I would say. I'm like, it's fine. But it was like, but it's not a joke. It's not someone having fun with somebody else. This is like an idiot villain saying an idiot villain thing. And in this comic, written in 1985 by these comic writers, he's like, yes, I get that. I get that genetically you're black, but you're albino, so it doesn't count. Like, what?
I do love. I think.
How did that get past an editor?
Yeah, I love Hank Pym's line here. "I don't think they liked your views on civil rights, Reaper. When the going get tough, the Talon and the Manape got going."
Yeah, they did. So this is the bit where we were talking before about Vision and Simon Wonder Man having like a heart-to-heart en route to trying to capture the Grim Reaper, and the Grim Reaper pulls a Gollum and he like slips while he's running and falls off the cliff and seemingly dies, or he does die, but he'll come back later. They all come back. Nobody ever really dies in comics except Uncle Ben and what's the other one that stays dead forever?
Bruce's parents.
Yeah, Uncle Ben. Well, yeah, kind of.
Oh, I can't do that now because I swear to God, if they continue with the Flashpoint movie after what we had to sit through with Ezra Miller, I'm going to be really pissed.
And that seems to be the direction they're going in. All right, issue number 3. Unless you have anything more to say about issue number 2.
No, again, we covered most of the main points. I will admit, the idea of what they're going to do to Wonder Man and Vision's kind of scary. The idea they're essentially just going to take their brains like playing cards and shuffle the deck together. That's very disconcerting. Was happy to see Mockingbird get into the fight. She's a fun character.
Yeah, I enjoyed Mockingbird back when she was with the West Coast Avengers.
Well, then I hate the fact that her previous line was Hawkeye checking in with her, and she's like, "There's nothing to do. I cleaned the floors and did laundry." And I'm just like, sweet Jesus, I know this was made in the 80s, but come on.
Written by men in the 80s. What a time. Before we continue,
folks, this was written at a different time. We're just reviewing it.
Let me go ahead and just take a moment to tell you about one of the services that we enjoy here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, which is Grammarly. For you listeners of Source Material Live on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, brought to you by W2M, Grammarly is offering a free download of the Grammarly software. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M-network. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2M-network to download Grammarly for free. All right. So now we're in issue number 3, and this is the one with Agatha Harkness, and we get a flashback, again, with a nod to WandaVision. We get a flashback of Agatha Harkness being burned at the stake, and this is a bit where she's not being burned by, like, the village idiots. She's being burned by a coven of witches going, we want your power, we don't want you, and so we are the witches of New Salem, and you've got to go. And it's like, they're not even, like, they're not drawn like your typical witches. They look like it's like a snake woman and like a gypsy thing, and one of them looks like one of the Inhumans or an Atlantean or something. The other one looks like the black version of Captain Marvel. A weird group, man.
Yeah, this was bizarre. Not to mention some of the names. I know that coming up with individual comic book characters is not easy, but when you have characters named Vacuum, Bratilia, and Gazelle, you know you're probably running on fumes.
So we burn Agatha Harkness, and then we're back to the present with Wanda and Vision walking through the woods, and they're talking about Magneto and Quicksilver and what's going on with them, and we'll catch up with them later on in the series. And then they are attacked by the witches of New Salem.
Gotta tell you, a lot of friends who are interested in Wicca and paganism and stuff like that who would love to live in a town called New Salem.
They're captured by the witches, and they are thrown in a cage, and the cage has runes around it. That should sound familiar. And they're going to be sacrificed for their power. There's actually one witch they've got in another cage who's like, I can't wait to be sacrificed. And Scarlet Witch is like, nah.
Tell me you weren't thinking about that episode from the first season of Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. When you have talking about the feast, and the one woman's just like, no, and she slits her own throat so she can be sacrificed.
Yeah, yep. So a lot of the second half of this comic is them trying to get out of this stupid cage and having a conversation with this woman who just can't wait to be sacrificed. So the Scarlet Witch is trying to wake the Vision up. He's unconscious, or he's playing possum, whichever version of the story. They go to burn the Scarlet Witch at the stake, like you do, and the Vision comes and he saves her. And they beat up the witches of New Salem. So what do you think of this issue?
Well, first of all, I really like this bit where Wanda, she doesn't know that he's playing possum yet, and it's a lot of dialogue, but you get some really touching moments here while she's talking to what she thinks is his inert body. And she gets this lines like, I really never minded that you called me Curly when we were alone.
Yeah, that's one of the strengths of this series, is that as hokey as it's written at times, you do get a very strong sense that these two are, and this is where it differs from the series. I mean, you saw a little bit of it in Infinity War, but like, these two are a real couple. They, later on, there's going to be a bit where the Vision is enchanted by the Enchantress, and they fight like a married couple. It's fantastic. It's one of the best parts of the book. But I'm a man. You certainly are, asshole. Oh, not like that, but it's great. I can't wait to talk about it. Any case, one of the strengths of the book, like I was saying, was how they're not just. Yeah, these are comics written in the 80s, so yes, in every issue they fight somebody. There's some punching going on somewhere. But their relationship is one of the, if you're the kind of person who just doesn't want to see all action all the time, and you can kind of tolerate, relationships in a book, theirs is a great one. They truly love each other. They are a yin and a yang. They are supporting each other. they are what's the line from Jerry Maguire? They're completing one another, and that really starts to come out in this issue. So, and really throughout the rest of the series. So it's one of the things I really enjoyed about this.
Yeah, I agree. Although, how terrifying is it that she basically absorbed the magic and life force of this entire village and then channeled it into her uterus?
And that's how they had a baby. Yay!
You see, kids, when a mommy and daddy love each other very much, the mommy unleashes all of her hex powers and drains the living force from a group of asshole witches.
That's how my kids were born. I don't know about yours.
I have puppies, not kids. Not kittens.
So yes, now the Scarlet Witch is with child, and it was something they had talked about in the issue at the beginning about like, hey, now we're married, we have a home, you know, what's the next step here? Well, for many people, not everybody, nor should it be for everybody, but for many people, they decide, well, no home is complete without children, and so, you know, he's a robot, she's a mutant, how is this going to work? It's going to work through magic. Terrific.
First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes the unholy abomination that goes against everything that God has ever taught us.
Thanks, Churchy.
Sorry. Hey, I've had a while to think up these damn jokes, okay? I'm sorry, I've had a while to come up with these jokes since the freaking second episode of WandaVision, all right? I do bring in Doctor Strange here as the one to tell her that she's pregnant. It's just kind of cute. He's like, I know I'm not, this specific kind of doctor, but I am a it's like I do practice general medicine, and I don't know, it's just kind of cute when they actually call back to the fact that he does have, full medical training. He's not just the Sorcerer Supreme. Well,
that's, and I don't know if people would agree with this now who read contemporaneous comics, but I do feel like back in the 80s and 90s, the Marvel and DC universes felt lived in. They felt like real places that, with real people who may have strange and magical abilities, but were people before they were superheroes. It's something that gets lost in a lot of the movies that get made today. Not so much the Marvel ones. The Marvel ones are good at balancing that. The DC ones, the people they have directing those don't ever seem to understand that. More on that tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't mind if in an upcoming Doctor Strange, or even a movie where Doctor Strange appears, maybe he takes a second to, I don't know, check and see if someone's got a broken arm or something. They're like, what are you doing? It's like, I am a doctor. It's like, I didn't just take this name because it's flashy, Well,
that's one of the things I like about Infinity War, where, when we meet Doctor Strange, he's going to get a tuna sandwich.
That is such a great scene.
I would not say no to a tuna sandwich if all the power in the world, but you don't have money.
Yeah, sorry, I can't. I'm not a fan of tuna. I mean, I like tuna steaks, and I love spicy tuna rolls.
Sure.
But tuna out of a can and tuna on a sandwich, I can't do.
I just, especially with the way my jaw and my gums have been lately, I had a tuna sandwich from Subway the other day. Delicious. All right. Issue number 4.
I can't eat those. I look at the tuna water and I want to puke.
The Scarlet Witch learns from Doctor Strange that she is getting a baby. Woo! Which she has conceived using her magic, as you mentioned before. Unfortunately, her new neighborhood in Jersey is still not fond of a mutie and an artificial human living in the neighborhood and plans on burning down the house again. Apparently, this is the thing that happens. However,
love the panel of her telling him that that Vision's going to be a father, and he just falls on his ass and he's smiling. That's so cute.
Yep, they like I said, they did a really good job of this. Yeah, so this is the bit where they're trying to convince the realtor to help them burn down the house, and there's a lot of that going on. That's where he finds out and he falls down. All these fat white middle suburbanites are they're having a barbecue and they're like, oh, what are we going to do about these guys? This is where we also meet Glamour and what's the other guy's name? Illusion.
Okay, another pair of characters I had genuinely I mean, I hate to say, part of me was wondering if I had heard of them, but in all fairness, the names Glamour and Illusion have been co-opted by so many other companies.
Yeah, I didn't remember them.
Yeah, so I was like, maybe it's like I think I've heard of them. Like, oh, like you've never read another book somewhere with a character named Glamour. Give me a break.
But they are the magic-using neighbors next door, and they're perfectly happy with the Wanda and Vision hanging out in the neighborhood. They're also performers, kind of like Zatanna is in the DC series. So anyway, fast forward through the book here, and we get to these crazy white boys trying to burn down their house, and of course Glamour and Illusion know what's happening. They know what these guys intend, their nefarious intentions, and so they use their powers to have the local woods attack them, and they're like, oh god, the woods are haunted. They run away and give up their plans.
Yeah, that's the spooky scene from Snow White. It's that.
Yeah.
That's all I thought of when I saw the trees grabbing them. I'm like, oh, look, it's Snow White in the woods.
We get Agatha Harkness doing her best Obi-Wan Kenobi. She's telling Scarlet Witch to prepare. Vision meets Illusion and Glamour, but he thinks they're enemies, so he attacks them, and they're like, calm the fuck down. Like, we're trying to help you. So there's that. And then we have the neighbors confronting Scarlet Witch, and she's like, yeah, I wouldn't if I were you.
What do you think about the fact that these guys basically, when she tells them she's pregnant, they're like, it's like, listen, we don't like you, but we're not stupid enough to attack a pregnant woman. So you're...
Number one, that's a very 80s, like, I don't know, motif is the right word, but it's definitely, I don't know. In 2021, I don't know if, it's kind of like, would you hit a guy with glasses? Well, now we would, but maybe 20 years ago, no. It's very much kind of the same thing, like, hey man, pregnant chicks are hands off, and I don't know if we keep the same morality in this culture right now. I don't know if anyone's fucking hands are off these days. But I definitely felt like it was that was a line from its time.
Yeah.
Issue number 5. One of Wanda's incantations goes awry, transporting our heroine to the land of the dead, like you do. Quicksilver learns of his sister's happy news. Wanda finds herself in the land of the dead on Halloween night, trying to communicate with Agatha Harkness, and facing old foes such as Baron Zemo, the Salem Witches, and the Dark Phoenix. She also tells Quicksilver that he will be an uncle soon. Alright, so this is the Halloween episode. It's definitely very different than the Halloween episode in WandaVision.
Yeah, especially when you get a great bit where she calls Pietro baby brother, and he apparently missed the frickin' point that she's about to have a baby, because he goes on for a tangent about how he doesn't like being called baby brother, and she's like, okay, can't see the forest through the trees. Shut up for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just the beginning of insufferable Pietro.
Yeah.
It gets worse.
Signs of the new Salem witches in the land of the dead. You've seen that. I think it's a combination of just being down there and the effect that Wanda's magic had on them. That parts of them are rotting away,
right.
Parts of them mutated. You got Vertigo, the woman who you said looked like the Black Captain Marvel, who now has no head. I thought that was actually very creative. How it was. I was so worried we were just going to get zombified versions, but no. Each one has had something different happen to them that reflects on how Wanda used her magic on them. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yep. So this is a lot of these have been very Vision heavy. This one was a very Wanda heavy episode issue. Vision goes to save her. She's in the land of the dead. And let's see here.
I'm convinced that the plot of this was used for various episodes of Supernatural, though, because the idea is that, I love the idea. Basically, you have Samhain. Oh my God, I know there's the proper way to pronounce it, and I cannot think of how you're supposed to pronounce it. So I probably sound horribly uneducated, and I apologize. But he's using his power through a book that was burned.
Right.
But ashes still exist. The whole, what was, you can't destroy matter. You can only, change it. So because the ashes still exist, technically the book still has power. And Vision has to collect the ashes, which he does through Illusion's help and this very polite woman named Holly. And he basically has to reduce them down to their bare atoms in order for them to have absolutely no power whatsoever. Again, that's very similar to what you see in a lot of episodes, excuse me, of Supernatural, where it was simply a case of, this wasn't properly destroyed, so something is still able to use its magic through, and you need to really destroy it properly.
Yep, this is the premise behind Justice League also, where they bring Superman back, where they're like, oh, the mother box is just, matter never really goes away, it just becomes different forms, and so a solid object can become liquid, which becomes gas, and then you can turn, and using the mother boxes, you can turn gas back into a solid. And they were like, well, fuck it, Superman. Let's change dead matter into live matter. And so they do.
Technically, you don't need a mother box to turn a gas back into a solid. You just need a lot of patience. You can turn water vapor back into water and then back into ice.
Yes. So anyway, so the Vision's puts together back this book, and he shoots the book, and Agatha Harkness shows up, and she helps Wanda defeat Sam Hain, and then we're off to my favorite issue of the entire business, Thanksgiving. Oh my god, this is so good.
The mutant came to dinner. Womp, womp, womp.
So, when they make the when they make the movies and they make the television shows, you'll notice it's very rare that they're wearing their costumes, especially their comic accurate costumes. And if they do, there's a reason for it. In WandaVision, just as an example, she's got on the comic accurate Scarlet Witch getup, and they're like, "What are you dressed up as?" She's like, Slovakian gypsy fortune teller thing." That's what she says.
Sokovian.
Sokovian, yeah. Sokovian fortune teller. And of course, Vision is Vision is dressed up as a luchador, which is the way he's drawn in this comic is what he's dressed up as.
Or even more so, you go back to the movie Age of Ultron, you've got a huge party at Avengers Tower. If that was drawn in this style, they would all be in their costumes.
Right.
But they're dressed in casual business formal. They're all wearing nice, casual suits. Black Widow's wearing a nice dress.
Right. They look like normal human beings. The hilarity of this issue number 6, where they're having Thanksgiving dinner, it's my favorite issue because it's the one that deals the least punchy of them all. But it's a hilarious issue because they've opened their home for Thanksgiving dinner, and they've invited a bunch of Avengers and Illusion and Glamour. They've invited Quicksilver, his wife who's an Inhuman, and their baby. They've invited Namor and Captain America, and everyone's in their costumes.
And
Everybody.
they've also invited Wonder Man's mother, who by extension is Pseudo Vision's mother. Again, please don't ask us to re-explain that. We don't have time. And the realtor who sold them their house is also there.
Yes, in normal clothes, by the way.
Yeah.
He didn't show up in costume. But it's just so funny to me because you're right. Because, if this had been the movie, they'd all just been in normal clothes. Why would they be wearing their, punch the bad guy gear? But they... but because this is a comic written in the 80s, and they're like, no, fuck, he's got his shield on. Captain America has his shield. Fucking Namor is in his bathing suit.
What was the line from that one episode of Jimmy Kimmel? It's like these aren't Speedos, they're panties from Atlantis.
Right. So he's nearly buck-ass nude. Glamour and Illusion are in their stage getup, which was even dumber considering they live in the neighborhood. The only one that looks halfway normal is Wasp,
who is wearing, I don't know what she's wearing. I hate to say
a blouse with a belt, and it looks like either leather pants or I don't know, what is it that you girls wear? The tights. They have a name. Leggings.
Yes, leggings. It actually took me a little time to realize that was Wasp, and maybe that's part of the reason they put them in the costumes, because so many fans probably wouldn't recognize a lot of the characters if they weren't in costume. I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and admit it. if I didn't see Namor in the Speedo and they didn't address him, and they hadn't addressed him by name, I would not realize that's Namor. I just thought they had basically invited a guy who looks like Dr. Spock. Like, oh, look, Leonard Nimoy crashed the party. Cool.
It's such a surreal thing to look at, and it cracked me up. Like, I get that it's not something they thought about when they were writing comic books in the 80s or the 90s, probably. I don't know how much of that you'd see now that everyone has to walk around in their uniform constantly. I feel, like I remember one of the first shows we brought you on for because you're a girl, and I wanted to do a Women's Day book, so that's how my mind works. We did the Mockingbird book that has the cover that says, "Ask me about my feminist agenda for Women's Day," because that's just how my mind works. And like I was thinking about like Mockingbird. Now that's only a couple of years old, that book. The Mockingbird series is from before Secret Wars, so within the last 10 years.
I just remember reading that and you asking me, so where is the feminist agenda? And I said, when I find one, I'll get back to you.
She's in normal clothing for most of that. Like she rarely is in like punching the bad guy getup. But again, not something they took particularly seriously back then. So everyone, later on they do the same thing with Luke Cage, where it's like, why are you even wearing this stupid getup? Well, because that's how you're drawn. That's why.
That story arc was good for one thing and one thing only: introducing the nuts about corgi butts reoccurring joke on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network.
So the big thing with this issue is that Magneto comes for Thanksgiving dinner, and it's so funny because they're all like in their fighting stance, like they're like ready to go. By this point, I think Magneto has just now started to turn over a new leaf. He's no longer doing evil things, but he's got decades upon decades, including abusing Pietro and Wanda. So, needless to say, it's so funny because, like, in real life, haven't we all been in that situation where it's like you tell somebody that you're having people over, and the person's like, and then like you feel obligated to invite them over, and like nobody wants them there. Why did you invite so and so? Like, can't not invite them once I've mentioned it. I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I mean, Wanda basically admits she didn't start out to invite him to dinner, to Thanksgiving dinner, but she did have to eventually let him know that he was going to be a grandfather again. And it's like, I can't really say to him, no, you can't. It's like, but, hey, I'm pregnant. No, you can't come to Thanksgiving.
Right.
It doesn't work like that.
So the great thing about this, other than the look who's coming to dinner aspect of it, and everyone like, and nothing happens. Like, people kind of get over it real quick. Pietro, there's
a really great panel here where you see what the characters are thinking while they're looking at Magneto, which is perfect because, you could just imagine if sitting around this kind of thing, everyone's staring at him and just hearing their thoughts going, I can't believe he's got the gall to show his face black and black and black and black and black. Like that. Pietro
like struggles like privately with it, like he's like, "Hey, like, why are we forgiving this guy? He was abusive. He did terrible things. He used us." And she's like, "Fucking life is long. Resentment is corrosive, right, Tony?" But
of course, we also get that shot of Wanda in her Brotherhood of Mutants costume, which I still don't get what the hell was going on with the hood when they designed that. She looks like she's trying to impersonate an Ewok.
But there's a really great bit towards the end where Magneto's talking to Scarlet Witch. And I really like this part of the book, where he's like, I want us to move the relationship forward. I want you to forgive me. And she's like, I'm willing to allow for space for you to be forgiven, but you actually have to do it. You have to earn, it's something I talk to my kids about all the time. Like, you want to show people that you're good and that you're going to do the right thing. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to show people again and again and again, and eventually you'll win them over. But you're not going to instantly win people over in one action or because you ask them to.
For you can ask for forgiveness, and when someone asks you for forgiveness, you have every right to tell them, maybe one day, but I can't do it all at once. You do not have to forgive somebody right away when they ask for it. That's
right.
just part of being mentally and emotionally healthy. And Wanda says it's like she told him because she wants him to know that she's going to have a baby. She clearly would want her child to know their grandfather. But she's saying, but that doesn't mean that we're just going to wipe the board and forget about all the shit you put me through.
Right. It's I talk about this with a lot of my patients. For every year that you were disruptive in other people's lives, for every year you hurt people, double that is going to take the amount of time for them to get past it and forgive you and be able to, go the way forward in terms of building a new relationship, because that's really what you're talking about here. Mm-hmm. Their relationship with Magneto in this particular case was one of adversarial. He was a terrorist, and he was an abusive person to them, on top of being a terrorist and untrustworthy and maniacal and all this other stuff. And there's decades of this. You can't, it's going to take that long, if not doubly long, for them to sort of forget all of that and move past it. And again, that's one of the things. That's why I like this so much. Is it's an understanding of real world psychology and relationships that these things have consequences. It's why I have such a hard time with certain movies where a villain is redeemed in one action and everyone just sort of forgets. Like we talked about this with Revenge of Skywalker, and I made a joke about it, but it really was like a logistical thing for me. Like, how do you welcome Kylo Ren back into the good graces of the New Republic when he's killed so many people? And it's great that Rey found the good in him. Rey was psychologically attached to him throughout the course of The Last Jedi. But nobody else was. Nobody else has that relationship, and to them, he's just a crazy murderer and has been for years now.
I am really glad that Wanda and Pietro are sticking to their guns on this. I was worried that at first we were going to get Wanda saying, "Oh, we should forgive him and move on for the child's sake," and Pietro's going to be like, "No, I can't forgive him." It's like, no, they're both very angry about this.
Yep. And Magneto is not dumb. He's not. I don't think he's as smart as Charles Xavier, but he's up there. And I think he realizes on some level a lot of what we're talking about. And later on, when Toad attacks with the so we do get some punchy parts. But when Toad attacks with the robots that are made to look like Magneto, Quicksilver in his old Brotherhood. Who's the other one?
Mind, who I hate to say again, I'm not 100% familiar with, and I keep getting confused because I know at least 3 other Mastermind characters, including one in DC.
Mm-hmm.
Again, very common name.
Yes, Mastermind.
I would also, sorry, what?
Yes, Mastermind. That's his name.
Yeah, I do kind of like the idea. We were talking all the characters are in their full regalia. Magneto's wearing a freaking turtleneck and jeans.
Yes, he's the only sensible one.
Yeah, I just kind of like it. It's like, I don't know. I'm just kind of imagining, I don't know, Thanos or Loki showing up in casual wear at an Avengers get-together, just like, what the hell?
That's why I know our good friends in Radulich and Broadcasting family. Many of them hate Ragnarok, but it was one of my. It was a small detail, but it was one I greatly enjoyed. When Thor and Loki were looking for Odin, and they were just in normal street clothes, but Loki always having to look, very GQ, is in this really great suit, and then there's Thor who looks like he's been bumming around Europe.
Yeah, he's wearing like jeans and a sweatshirt with a jacket, and I love he's got his Mjolnir disguised as the umbrella.
Yep.
Let's face it, they both look amazing. It's like, I don't care what Chris Hemsworth is wearing. God damn, is he gorgeous?
Yes, well,
he's a pretty man.
Chris, absolutely. Chris Hemsworth could make Bermuda shorts and a Hawaiian shirt and flip flops look sexy. Let's not kid ourselves here.
No argument here.
I'm not gay, but
Go listen to our Extraction review, folks. You'll get a lot more of this.
So anyway, so this was a fun use of Toad. But there's a bit here where they're like, why don't we call, like, hey, we're being attacked by Toad and a bunch of robots that have the same powers as us. Why don't we call everybody? And Magneto's like, yeah, let's not. And here's why. I need to earn Scarlet Witch's trust. I need to earn Wanda's trust. If we call her out here to be in this fight, there's no way I'm going to be able to convince her I didn't start the fight. I didn't create the situation just so I can manipulate her and to welcome me back into her life. She's never going to believe that I'm the victim here and not the one that started it. So it's best if we just leave her out of it. I have to earn her trust naturally. And I'm like, wow. Could someone hand that to, like, the writers in professional wrestling, that things work when they work organically, not when they're forced? That's the point he's making.
I also got a little bit of an idea at the beginning of the fight. You're right, he does say that at the end, but at the beginning of the fight, I also got a little bit of an idea of, I don't want to stress my pregnant daughter out. I don't want her to, because there is a lot of times where everyone's like, Wanda, should you really be doing this? You're carrying a child. And I kind of got the idea of, he's like, I don't want her to have to deal with this fight. I don't want her to have to stress out. She's prepared. She's been, prepping Thanksgiving dinner all day. Let's not stress her out.
Yep. All right, so they defeat Toad. Toad takes off, though, and this is not the last we're going to see of him. He will show up again, I believe, actually, in the next issue. There's more of Toad. Yep, Toad and more of his... who did he rip off? The Mad Thinker? I forget. Who did he say that he stole from?
I'm trying to remember exactly. I hate to say it, my favorite part of the next issue, sadly, is like in the very first few panels where you have Namor, Vision, and Cap battling in a training simulation, and Namor just goes Hulk on the machine and destroys it. And Cap goes, Namor, that machine caused Tony Stark over 5, and then he gets plowed by the machine. I hate to say, that's something I actually really wish we would see, because obviously I can imagine, well, not anymore because the character is dead, but I could have so imagined Tony Stark putting together a Danger Room style simulation for the Avengers, and someone destroying something, and Tony's walking going, yeah, there's, $10 million just down the drain. Sure, why not?
So this is issue number 7. Batteries not included. And the first part of it is, as you were talking about, they're having their Danger Room session, and the Vision shows up, and he's like, tell me about the Human Torch. I'm trying to, and this is more of him like, well, who am I? Am I, I don't remember any of this guy's life. It actually reminded me of the bit in WandaVision where he's like, I don't remember my life before Westfield. And so he's struggling here. He's like, you keep saying that I'm from some iteration of an android Human Torch, but I don't remember it. And so he's struggling with that, and it's so funny because he's asking questions, and then later on, Wanda will ask him about it, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know what I was looking for. I don't." And that's a very human thing, to seek out meaning, to seek out identity, to seek out, well, who am I? What am I? And sometimes in your travels, as you search for, your definition of who you are, what you are, you don't always find it where you think you're going to find it. And, you go looking for it, and it's not where you think it is. And I just thought, like, as goofy as comic books in this era tend to be, I thought the writers really wrote some heady stuff here, especially for what this was. So I like that element of it.
Definitely. But again, it is very wordy, and it does really drag on for a while. Mm-hmm. Let's just say, if you want to read this book, we fully encourage it. It is a really well-written book. Just please get yourself some caffeine.
It took me 3 or 4 tries.
Yeah. I do like a little bit here with Wanda. Oh, this is hilarious. Wanda's agreed to teach witchcraft to their neighbor, Holly.
Like you do. Which
is so freaky. Yeah, I was just like, okay, random. But you get this great little bit where they're sitting in front of the fireplace, and Wanda is actually talking about the Festival of Yule, and Holly goes like, well, wait, that sounds like Christmas. This is actually a subject that I have been studying on the side that I find very fascinating. How so many Christian archetypes and traditions were taken from other religions. And
Yeah,
I
I was
always found
I was actually just talking about that with my kids. We talked. The subject of religion came up while we were on vacation this past week, and I was explaining to my 7 and 10-year-old, who were totally ready to hear the sort of thing, how a lot of the Christian traditions borrowed from paganism because they wanted to win over those people, and it was easier to sort of adopt those traditions.
Yeah, I've actually kind of wanted to do some extra studying, maybe even write a book about in the future. It's just one of those things I've kicked around about the idea of how Christianity, when you actually break it down, has no true original ideas to it whatsoever. My favorite line of all time from a reviewer I frequent, blah, was, okay, so to clarify, Christianity has a tendency to absorb other religions like the Borg.
Yeah, it's so funny because I've actually done an extensive amount of religious history reading back when years and years ago, before I was married, even the first time. I went through this period of just reading nothing but nonfiction, and then within that period, post 9/11, pre-marriage, I went through this period of reading nothing but nonfiction, and in that period, I read a lot of religious nonfiction, a lot of religious history, and it's so funny because the Christian religion really is like, a religion created by Jews who turned away from Judaism that adopted paganism. It until the Catholics come along, until the Catholic tradition is created, it has like no real rigid structure to it. It's just, we Jews don't think the Messiah has come. Well, we Jews think it's this guy. Okay, then. That's kind of it.
I love breaking down Christian imagery and actually looking for where certain things came from. There's a whole chapter in, I want to say it's the Da Vinci Code, where they talk about this. And I remember reading that. The part that I thought, the first part of that actually caught my interest was they discussed that halos on angels were not original. They came from sun discs that you see on the Egyptian gods. And again, I just always found this very interesting that pretty much any part of Christianity, for the record, we're not bashing Christianity. Every religion is personal. My parents.
None of this is to say that it's bad. It's just this is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't. It's a hard conversation to have with somebody who's devoutly Christian, because this is not stuff they really want to hear about. I used to have that problem with the Laughing Jesus. It talked about Gnosticism and whatnot. If you've ever read the book The Laughing Jesus, it talks about that basically the Jesus myth is not exclusive to Christianity, but is a myth shared by a number of religions across the ages of humanity. And it's like, it's hard for people to hear stuff like that.
Oh, I got to be a first-hand witness to reborn Christian Kevin Sorbo throwing a fit over the Bible Part 2.
I'm guessing this was at a con?
Yeah, funny. There is a comic book called The Bible 2. And it's so hilariously tongue-in-cheek blasphemous. The cover features Jesus on a unicorn holding a machine gun. So exactly what kind of book it is. And the author of it was going to be signing at a show, I want to say it was up in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. And it was right across, he'd been placed across from Kevin Sorbo, who's, you may not know, is a born-again Christian. I mean, you'd probably figure that out if you saw him in the recent God's Not Dead movies, but, And Sorbo threw a fit, apparently, demanding that he not face this guy's stand. So they had to do a massive reshuffling. So when I and a bunch of other artists got there, they had no idea where to put us because they were still fixing the map. And I ended up with a free corner booth because then all was said and done, they just basically had no other place to put me. So I was like, yay, free upgrade. Thank you, Kevin Sorbo. Years later, I finally got to meet the guy who wrote the book and buy a copy from him. And I told him about that story, and he was like, shit, people knew about that? I'm like, are you kidding me? That was the talk of the whole show. Everyone knows about that.
That's funny. There's a great book that I read. I was trying to find the name of it on Amazon while you were telling your story. And it's been so long, I don't remember the author's name anymore. I barely remember the title, but it's the premise of the book talks about the history of how the Bible was created, and how basically you had the beginnings of the Catholic Church sitting around with a bunch of Gospels and trying to edit the Bible and deciding, okay, well, you have this first part, that's the Old Testament. We're going to leave that largely intact, but then we're going to have this New Testament, and we have to figure out what this New Testament's going to be. And they had the Gospel of Judas and the Gospel of like Mary Magdalene, and a lot of this stuff ended up being lost in burnt libraries, and then they found it later, and when they unearthed other libraries, things like the Library of Alexandria and whatnot. This is where they found all of these Gospels that didn't make the cut. But, the reason why we have the Gospels of Luke, Matthew, George, and Ringo, I don't remember all of them, but...
And of course, what's his name? There's a comedian I listened to who talked about the Gospels, and for some reason he ended up giving the Gospels New Jersey Italian accents.
That's funny.
So yeah, it's like, so Jesus, what are we gonna do? I don't know why they're talking like this. He just literally just started talking about making up the voice on the fly. And he's just kind of like, why am I doing this?
But yeah, the book is about basically how the Catholic Church decided what the New Testament was going to be, and they were like, okay, well, no Gospel of Judas, but Gospel of Mark, and no Gospel of Mary Magdalene, but Gospel of Matthew, and and whatever other books of the New Testament they decided to include, and what they did not include, and then they ended up being lost to time for a period of time. Mm-hmm. Like I said, a lot of this stuff has been found now. Like you can read the actual Gospel of Judas, or you can read the book about the Gospel of Judas. I've done both. So anyway, enough about that. How we got to here, I'll never know. But back to the Vision and the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, discussion with Wanda about the Yule Festival of Yule.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so moving on, we get a pair of legs, Mastermind's robotic legs, trying to free Toad. And I love it's like, halt, legs. And he manages to... Can we both agree that what they did with Toad in the first X-Men movie is miles of an improvement than this design?
I don't know. I mean, I like the idea of a short, chubby guy running around going, nobody loves me. Nobody loves me, nobody cares, but I'm really hot for this redheaded woman, and I'll kill everyone that tries to take her from me. I kind of like... why does everyone have to look the same? I like the idea that he's... like this weird-looking dude that would have a complex, and and he just also has superpowers, and so he takes it out on people. I think it's great.
I guess I've got a thing for Ray Park. I actually saw him at a convention in Austin. I didn't get to see him personally because I was running my table, but they were broadcasting.
By the way, the answer was the Stranger. He stole the Stranger's tech.
Right, thank you. But yeah, I got to see Ray Park perform on the Jumbotron that they were broadcasting at the Comic-Con, and he was amazing to watch. He's just so phenomenally cool and so talented.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen like Patton Oswalt as the Toad.
Well, now you're going to get Patton Oswalt as MODOK. So, you apparently wished with a frickin' monkey's paw. Good for you.
Well, you do too, because you'll be reviewing it with me, lucky gal. You lucky duck.
I'm actually not that against it. And for the record, I am a huge Patton Oswalt fan. I listen to his stand-up continuously. I love his... I
was obsessed with it for the longest time. There was a period where, there was a period, especially when I was having some health problems, where, I would laugh so hard at him doing the Tom Carvel bit, where he would start referring to, he would start doing an impression of Tom Carvel, talking about his two different cake pans, and he was, talking about... for St. Patrick's Day, Patio Cripley.
Oh, I've got his bit on the bugged car on a save on one of my
YouTube. Yeah. Oh, if the CIA could hear me. Send
an ATV to the Burbank Chops. There's a thief made of cinnamon and lemon drops. Yes.
Right.
That is one of my go-to. I need an immediate cheer-up audio clips.
Yeah, for the Tom Carvel thing, especially when he was it said it doesn't take too kindly to queers. So he was giving us the hairy eyeballs. We beat him with a lead pipe. That still cracks me up, but him also talking, his bit on steak was one of my favorite comedy bits for the longest time. Because I'll share this stuff, same with Eliza Schlesinger. My wife and I will talk about that stuff, and I'll share the bits with her, and then we'll just start doing the bits back and forth to each other. You were talking about doing the Pepe Le Pew with, I guess it was your husband, You know, like my wife and I will do comedy bits at each other. So, you know, so I'll just blurt out like, "Doors locked from the inside, faggot." And you'll each get your own. Yeah, he's talking about like an angry gauntlet of food at like Ruth's Chris, I think it was.
Oswald, Christopher Titus, and John Mulaney make up majority of my comedy playlist. I can listen to all three of them all day and never get sick of them.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jim Norton, which I know is an acquired taste, not for everybody. Patton Oswalt and the Australian guy that did the gun control bit, Jim Jeffries. All right, moving on.
Yeah.
People are like, I didn't come here to listen to this. Well, fuck off. Anyway.
Sorry, we're getting easily distracted, and my dog has apparently gotten distracted from the bone, and she's biting me again. Come on, Cleo!
So meanwhile, Toad, with his stolen tech from the Stranger and Vision, have it, duke it out. And there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of fighting. And eventually, Vision just kicks Toad into space. And then he comes back down, and Oh, okay, and I was wondering when this happened. Okay, so this is where we first see that Crystal, who is an Inhuman, who is married to Quicksilver, is cheating on him with their neighbor, with their real estate neighbor. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun. Ow! Which becomes a big deal in the next couple of issues. So issue number 8. Let's start to get to the... Oh my god, this fucking issue. Power Man guest stars. Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Vision join the Harlem Hero for a demon bust. Crystal's fling with Norm Webster heats up. Luke Cage, WandaVision, and Quicksilver take down Zor. Holly is still upset about Crystal's affair with Norman Webster. You know, as much as I enjoy blaxploitation, I really struggle with what they thought was a good idea for Power Man in the mid-'80s. And I'll never forget that, like, that one scene, that I think it's the first or second season, I don't remember which one, of Luke Cage, where they do the flashback of him escaping from the prison, and he's
got the chains and the thing on his head, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, I look like a damn fool. So good.
Yes. Yes, you do. I love the little bit where he acknowledges Iron Fist, though. It's again, aw, those two are such cute buddies. I actually have a friend who does a perfect Power Man cosplay. He does Power Man cosplay, Cyborg cosplay, and Jon Stewart cosplay.
Is he doing like 70s, 80s era Power Man with the open blouse?
Yeah, the yellow shirt opened up, part way down. He's got the metal bands. He's got the helmet. He's got the. I actually haven't seen them in person. I've only seen photos, but I'm assuming the pants are made of polyester.
Does he have the chain belt? Yeah.
And further, it's my very good friend John Clark. He's one of my closest fellow con vendors. He is the epitome of the giant walking teddy bear, and I love him. And he makes a kick-ass Power Man.
You know, I can't think of another character from this era that was black. I was thinking about Black Lightning on the DC side. I remember talking to Jesse when the Black Lightning show premiered. Jesse and I did like the 12-issue limited series that came out at the time, and I vaguely remember him talking, jive of that era. This iteration of they've since cleaned him up. He's not this bad anymore. He talks like a regular person. But
yeah, this suddenly doesn't turn into that scene in Airplane where we need the woman who speaks jive.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Like, I love the Power Man character, but I think back to how this was written and by who it was written, and I'm like, did they think they were? Did they look around and like, well, this is black people, and so this is black people accurate? Do black people read this and go, yeah, no, this is right? Because I look at it and I'm like, oh boy, this hasn't aged well at all. Like, oh, this is embarrassing.
I didn't grow up in that era. I was born in 1984. Obviously, not the skin tone. So when I look at stuff like that, I just kind of go, probably different time, different place, different writers. Again, I don't know how, black people feel from that time period would feel they were being represented. for the record, if you're listening and you were alive during this time and you read those kind of comics and you were a minority, please feel free to let us know. Give us some feedback here. Let us know how you feel about that kind of a thing.
I know that especially around the time, I mean, it precedes Black Lives Matter, but preceding Black Lives Matter, there were which ultimately led to it. There were a series of situations where cops killed unarmed black people for one reason or another, and I remember there being a lot of entertainment editorial pieces on the idea of a modern black bulletproof superhero and how that was really a symbol for our time. And I'm like, it's like a 50-year-old character, but sure. I get them adopting it, but like still.
Yeah, there's no question whether or not you agree with Power Man's style and how he spoke in the previous incarnations of the comics. He's still an amazing character.
Oh, he's great. I have the shirt with I have it with this version of it. Like, if you're just asking, like, does it offend you personally? No. And certainly and I did grow up in an all-black neighborhood, and people many of them talk that way. Many of them didn't, though. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I knew plenty of black guys. I mean, we're talking elementary school here, but I also knew older kids, and I knew parents, and I don't know, 50-50. They were 50-50, doctors and lawyers and math and teachers and accountants, and they spoke like a normal human being speaks. And then there were kids, and there were adults, and there were people who spoke. I'm going to throw the word jive out there. There were people who spoke slang. But I mean, you would say that. But if you lived in an all-white neighborhood, you would see that. You would have people.
So we're using the word jive because, again, the easiest way to say this is to discuss that scene from Airplane.
But it's slang. If jive is too much of a tweaky kind of a word, using slang. But as I talk about this, you would get that in a white neighborhood too, where you'd have your educated folks who spoke regularly, and then you'd have people less educated who tended to rely on slang more, and and their accents are more pronounced, et cetera, et cetera. So, Power Man's an interesting character. I hate kind of how they write him in this issue. That's why I brought all that up. Like, I feel like they lean a little too much on it. Like, can't he ever just communicate normally? Like, everything is slang. It's like, come on, he's hanging out with like Captain America and shit.
Yeah, well, it was like, you motherless slime buckets, comes crashing through the window.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of that in this. And it just kind of made me roll my eyes. Like, come on, man. This guy's an Avenger.
Yeah, check it out, folks. We're under attack by the Idols of Zor, which you better do something. What's going on here? Yeah, again, I know, but he's still a really fun character.
She's talking like the rest of us are going after these green dragons, but that might just lead the fat boy to them. Why don't we stay put? Okay.
Honestly, I hate to say it. I think the thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, honestly, was that he says it was supposed to be his day off, and
it's not even supposed to be here today.
Yeah, because it's Martin Luther King's birthday, and I was like, wait. I mean, I honestly can't remember what job Luke has besides Heroes for Hire, but at the same time, I'm like, seriously, obviously we're doing a long Halloween style with each issue is a new month, but at the same time, it's like, was that really necessary to put in that a black man would be, right, celebrating Martin Luther? Not that, we wouldn't celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday, but it feels a little too on the nose.
Yeah, it's one of those where I'm sure that a lot of these writers and editors in Marvel at the time were probably as liberal as the day is long. But you're right. It just feels too on the nose. It feels like, well, black guy, Martin Luther King. Okay, check, done. Like, that's how, I joke, you're not going to get this, but for the wrestling fans out there, like, I made the joke about they partnered Sting up with Darby Allin because both of them paint their face, and that was the only connection they could make. Like, okay, black guy, Martin Luther King, we're good. We checked all the boxes. Like, it's not, some might call it racism. I tend not to. but it's definitely, I think, insulting when you minimize an entire cultural experience down to one thing, and it's the most obvious thing.
Exactly. On a positive note, I'm glad that the artists, while drawing Wanda pregnant, are actually doing a bit more of escalation with her pregnancy drawings. Something that I've noticed a lot of artists do is that they simply don't know how to draw a pregnant woman if she's either A, not showing, or B, about to burst.
Yep. So, all right, so this issue, they team up with Luke Cage, and Quicksilver joins them, and they're fighting the something or other Azor. And that's the Demons Azor, the whatever Azor. And they resolve it. The issue's over.
Yeah.
And then we're off to the next issue here. And we get a little bit more of Norm and what's her face, Crystal. Move on to issue number 9, and it's Mardi Gras. Springtime, Mardi Gras. Yeah, this was my second favorite issue just because of what happens in it. So the Enchantress is trying to steal something, and she casts a spell on Vision to have him do it, but there's a competing interest in trying to steal this thing. But the best part about this entire issue was that at one point the Enchantress and Vision are like making out, and eventually, like when she tries to get Vision to steal this jewel, he's like, "Wait, does not compute," and he shakes the spell off. It's too much for his logic programming to steal, so he's able to undo the spell. This whole time, Wanda's been looking for him in New Orleans, and everyone's like, he's been with this blonde woman, and she's like, who's this blonde woman? And I gotta find the panel here because it's fucking hilarious. It's such a dude. Like, I have to give the writers credit on this issue, along with a few others. They really go out of their way to make Vision a dude. He's just a dumb dude at times.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. All right, so he goes to steal the thing, and he's like, wait a minute, stealing is bad. And he's like, I can't do this anymore. All right, so then he shakes the spell off, and Trance is like, well, fuck. So she makes a run for it. Then Vision and Scarlet Witch run into each other. And he's like, oh, Wanda, Viz. Oh, Wanda, I found you, Viz, I found you. But you've got to tell me who was the blonde. What a womanly thing to do. Like, I'm glad you're safe. Now, who you been stripping? Huh? You dirty stay out, you cheat. So catch up to the Enchantress, and Enchantress goes after Scarlet Witch, and Vision's like, not my pregnant wife, you won't. So they hold her back, and skipping forward. Okay, here we go. So that was nice of you, Viz, to reassure her about her looks. Any woman would like to hear that. But you weren't really completely seduced, were you? Well... Now, don't play with me. You just had to go along against your will, right? Well, to tell you the truth, I had to go along, but I liked it. And she's like, oh!
Well, yeah, and everyone channeled their ultimate Miss Piggy.
Right. And again, total dude. Now, Wanda, be logical. I would never have kissed her under ordinary circumstances, but naturally I enjoyed it. She's beautiful. Wanda, of course, reacts like any woman would. You're digging a grave here, pal.
Yeah.
And he goes, she sneaked up on me the first time. And she's like, no, this is total bullshit. Well, why didn't you fight free from her before she got her lips planted or turn intangible? I could have, I suppose, but I would have been telling you I'm human. She's like, that's not a fucking excuse, asshole.
Yeah, it's really not. I mean, it kills me. Clearly, this is... I don't know. Part of me is just like, okay, I get Vision still learning how to be human, but he's done enough things in the past issues. You would think he would know not to do something this stupid. And, yeah, definitely, time and a place, 80s. You don't write guys who admit it's like, well, she is gorgeous. It's like, no, you don't. You do not say that, especially to your visibly pregnant wife. I'm not going to lie, by the way. I couldn't stop laughing at the first panel when they're walking down the streets of Mardi Gras, and you have everyone else in costumes and everything, and Wanda goes, here, I look totally normal. I'm like, well, why didn't that stop you at Thanksgiving?
All right, but anyway, sweet talk, sir. She's like, I'm going into the hotel room. I've just about had enough of you and your horniness. And Vision's like, hang on. I'm human. More human than I've ever been. But that means I love you more than ever. She fucking falls for it. She's like, you're right.
And then, of course, we end with Crystal apparently overdosing on an anti-pollution potion.
Yes, because apparently Earth is poisonous to Inhumans after a long stay. So we shift story arcs now. We're up to issue number 10. And this is where, like, ultimate, like, insufferable Quicksilver appears.
Yeah, so now we're on the moon, and we have our first issue with Black Bolt and Medusa and Fish Dude, whose name escapes me, and why the hell is Norm there?
Oh, he's partially responsible. He's involved with this woman who's cheating on her husband.
You still think there? I don't know. It's just kind of one of those things where I would look at the superpowered people and be like, dude, get the hell out of here.
It's kind of what happens. So, you know, they're all trying to figure out, like, well, why has she been on Earth so much? Why is she poisoned? What the hell? And there's some exchange of dialogue here, and finally, the Scarlet Witch is like, let me try something, and so she uses her witchy ways to go into another dimension to try to talk to her, and of course that works. But I think before all that is where she starts talking in her sleep, and she says, "Oh, Norman, we always have to sneak. We can't tell Pietro. Scandal. No, Norman." At which point, fucking Pietro's like, "I'll kill him."
I do love it. It's like she just says a few words, and he doesn't even think twice. It's like, pring, grab, choke.
Yep. Like, fuck my wife, will ya? I'll rip your head off. Does the term Brotherhood of Evil Mutants mean anything to you? And everyone's like, get off of him. And he's like, and it's so funny, because, like, on the one hand, you feel sorry for the guy. He's doing what he thought was right. He thought his wife was staying true to him. He's been betrayed, but he's such an ass about the whole thing. It's like, whatever sympathy you might have had because you are the wronged party, you're such a douchebag about the whole thing. Everyone's turning against you. And he, in turn's like, no, I'm the aggrieved party here. I'm the aggrieved party, and everyone should be on my side, and I have every right to act this way, which only makes it worse. And, and it's just building and building, and he won't give an inch, and nobody else, will give an inch because he's the one acting like a douchebag, at which point he just freaks the fuck out. Yeah,
he's calling his freaking militiamen to kill Norm. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah. This leads to a fight between him and the Inhumans, and Scarlet Witch actually has a conversation with Norm, and he's like, don't fucking blame me for this. Like, yeah, I'm 50% of the problem here, but it's not like I forced myself on her. She's unhappy, and they talk about how she's in a situation where she can't leave Quicksilver because she's royalty. It's kind of like, the Crown. Divorce is a scandal. So she's like, I got to stay with the guy, but I'm unhappy. He's not around. He is overcompensating by spending all of his time with the militia, and he doesn't spend time with our daughter. He doesn't spend time with me, and I feel alone in this marriage. The fucking tale is all this time. Plenty of women who have talked about that. They're like, when they don't feel like their husband is 50% putting their time in, especially if you have kids, women can feel that way. Men feel that way if it's the other way around. It's not just a women thing. And so not everybody handles it the right way. And she handled it by falling into the arms of a guy who's paying attention to her. Again, tale is all this time.
Absolutely. Not good, but understanding it.
Yep. No. There are a million and one ways you can fix this problem. Cheating is probably not a good one.
And yeah, of course, Pietro is just so freaking insufferable and insane. He's taking on Vision, all the Inhumans, and then he does the stupidest thing ever. He hurts Black Bolt's wife and When Black Bolt responds, yikes.
Yeah. That's the end of that. Peter just goes back to Earth. He's like, fuck all y'all. I'm done. I'm out. So he takes off. And I think, Crystal, tried to make amends with him, and he was like, no. There's no forgiving you. You're terrible.
Now, we do get a really cute scene where she enters Crystal's dreams, and this is Crystal's power, creating these kind of dream illusions and stuff. And she's in this very sappy, but still very lovely fairy tale world, and there's a rainbow, and she's in a princess dress, and she has a crown.
All right, issue number 11. Only days away from giving birth, Wanda and Vision make final preparations. Peter Parker makes an appearance while Quicksilver slips into insanity. So we get a little bit more of what's going on with Quicksilver. We get an appearance from Peter Parker. I missed what it is that J. Jonah Jameson's paying him for. I know they talk about, we're living off our savings, but we made shit tons of money being an Avenger because we used to get $1,000 a week in 1985, which was a lot of money. But he's like, yeah, but I guess I got to work again because we're not Avengers now. We're not collecting a paycheck. And so, he's doing something for the Daily Bugle. I couldn't figure out what, though.
Quick question. Was this done during the symbiote storyline? Because he is in the black suit.
Yes, this is post-Secret Wars 2.
Okay.
Or Secret Wars.
I get the timelines mixed up sometimes, so...
Well, I know at one point they actually make a reference to Magneto in the Beyonder, which was Secret Wars 2. So, yeah, we have Peter Parker hanging out, and then we get a return of the Toad. There's a great bit here with Quicksilver. He's just running through the Arctic and runs across a guy on a sled. He's screaming at him, like, "Do you have a wife? Do you love your wife?" As the guy's like, "Get off me, nut!"
Yeah. He's like, you just appeared out of nowhere. Why are you asking me this?
You do, don't you? Even here at the end of the earth, a man can have a faithful wife, but not me. Ugh, God. Let me tell you how much I don't like this. I know some friends of the show, as a matter of fact, who can be like this, where, this is oh, woe is me. And it's shut the fuck up. I can't deal. What Quicksilver does here is one of those things I just kind of hate about people. You don't, do you even here at the end of the earth, a man can have a faithful wife, but not me. No, I run alone. Even here, I am an outcast. All right, fucking Henry Rollins, take a chill pill.
Good one.
What is it where he's like, I am tight and lean? That's what made me think of Henry Rollins. Henry Rollins talked in one of his spoken words, he talked about being strong and pure and everything, and Quicksilver says something very similar to that. It's all right, get a hold of yourself. Anyway, Peter Parker's hanging out. Toad's going to show up eventually, and there's a bit here where he's got a Toad exosuit, which is fun. And there's a whole exchange here between Toad and Spider-Man where he's like, I wanted to be your friend. And he was like, but being a friend is, the door swings both ways. You got to not be an asshole. You can't expect people to want to be friends with you and be a dick on top of that. Very similar thing going on with Quicksilver.
Mm-hmm.
So they have that conversation while they're also fighting. We get a little backstory between Spider-Man and Toad. And they fight. And this is the best. It's just as a woman, I'm curious to your reaction to this. So Toad finally... He beats up Spider-Man, he beats up Vision, he gets to the house, he's like, I am here to claim my prize. I'm here for my princess, my wonderful Scarlet Witch, and oh God, you're pregnant. She's like, I've been pregnant for quite some time now. He's like, ugh, you're huge. This isn't how I pictured this at all. Another very dude moment, I think.
Again, very 80s. I mean, yeah, he basically says, at last we are united, my own. Yuck. Literally, that is the line. Yuck.
You no longer have any value to me. You're not good looking. That's
oh my God.
Saying.
Yeah, I'm pregnant, Toad. Yeah, but yes, I knew that, but I had no idea you were so huge. It's sweet Jesus. I mean, I hate to say, part of me is just, You ever watch Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law?
I'm aware the show exists. I don't think I've ever actually watched it.
Yeah, there was an episode where Galaxy Girl from the Galaxy Trio is a recurring character, and she is not only gorgeous, but she is also apparently sleeping with every single man she comes in contact with, except for Harvey, of course.
Mm.
And then there's an episode where she shows up, and she is very heavily pregnant. And she tells Harvey he's the father, and he's like, but we haven't had sex, but she won't even. It's like, no, of course you're the father. And every guy that she slept with comes and was like, oh my God, you're okay. Yeah, never mind. We're walking the other way now.
All right. We've been at this almost 2 hours. Let's wrap this up. Issue number 12, the finale. Everything comes together. Necra's back. Grim Reaper's back. Some dude looks like the Punisher's back.
Yeah. I hate to. I turned that and I was like, what the hell? It's like Necra, Grim Reaper, and apparently G.I. Joe.
Yep. So this is it. This is the issue where she gives birth. Necra brings Grim Reaper back to life. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what he is, but she tells him, like, it's fine. I brought you back because I love you. Me being an albino black woman and all. And so they're going to get revenge on Vision and the Scarlet Witch. It all comes back around. Magneto shows back up. Wonder Man shows back up because everyone wants to be there for the birth of the Scarlet Witch's son. However, Wonder Man and Magneto intercept Grim Reaper and Necra and this other dude that they've got with them while Vision and the Scarlet Witch are dealing with the birth. There's a thing here with Doctor Strange. Anyway, so yes, they all go ahead and deal. So Norm and Crystal are reunited, and basically Crystal's like, yeah, it just turns out basically if Quicksilver's not going to come back, then they're going to grant me a divorce. And if they do, then we can be together. And he's like, fantastic. So all's well that ends well for Crystal and Norman. We have Magneto and Wonder Man who have a shaky alliance, and they're like I said before, they're going to fight Grim Reaper and Necra. Meanwhile, Scarlet Witch gives birth to twin boys. She didn't know they were going to be twin boys, but they are in fact twin boys. Yay!
Yeah, well, we also get Doctor Strange fighting. Just going to say, this is the weirdest looking bad guy I think I have ever seen in the Marvel Universe, and I know that's saying a lot.
And so, Necra, Grim Reaper turns on Necra. They're defeated. The dude that armored up that looked like the Punisher, he gets defeated by them, because really, how are you going to take... without some serious superpowers, you're not going to take out fucking Magneto by himself, let alone Wonder Man and Magneto. So, they have two healthy baby boys. They bring them home. Everyone's gathered around, and that's the end. The last word belongs to the boys. Wah, wah. And that is Vision and the Scarlet Witch. So I will just say that for the most part I liked it. You know, I did talk about how it's a little wordy at times, which is the style, which is the style of this era of comic books. It can't be helped. It is what it is. But that being said, I rather enjoyed it. I rather enjoyed it because it wasn't your typical overly complicated 80s comic book fare. I liked the fact that it told a fairly simple story. It had a couple of different story arcs to keep things going, but it was mostly a book about people who love each other, about people in relationships, about people who love other people, but they don't love them back. And I thought it was a very human story, and that's what I want in my comics. You know, it doesn't have to be punchy. It does have to be relatable to the human experience. That's what I want in my film. It's what I want in my television. It's what I want in my comics. I don't want fucking bizarro, I don't want a lot of bizarro stuff. And so this was very human, and I really enjoyed it, despite some of its flaws, which we talked about at length. But I'll give you the final word. What did you think?
I did enjoy it. It is incredibly wordy, and it took a couple of tries to get through entirely, but it was worth it. I mentioned before how interesting it is reading this after watching WandaVision, because so many people online, when they saw the premise for WandaVision, kept going, "Oh, it's House of M, House of M." Yes, thank you, Eddie. And it's just interesting that I don't think a lot of them have read this book, because it's clear that WandaVision took a lot more from this than it ever did from House of M. Hell, I don't really think anything from House of M. Everyone just assumes it did because Wanda using magic to create her sons.
Yeah, which she does in this book. But I guess having read Avengers Disassembled, now this, and I have not read House of M, so I can't speak to it. I think, you know what it is? I think people's headcanon was basically she at the end of WandaVision is going to be like, no more mutants, or all the mutants, and we're in Wolverine, and fucking Hugh Jackman's going to walk on screen. I think that's what people wanted. So, like, they were hoping it was going to be House of M because they were hoping for X-Men.
Part of our discussion on WandaVision later this week is going to be, let's count all the fan theories that didn't come to fruition.
Let's pee in the mouth of fans who don't know who can't just enjoy the fucking show and have to, fan theory their way through things, and then are upset that their fan theory didn't come. Like, this is why I've always kind of taken Rian Johnson's side. Whether or not you thought The Last Jedi was a well-put-together movie, your Snoke theory sucks thing, I'm like, yeah, I'm with you, Rian Johnson. People are assholes.
Yeah, although, and again, we'll talk about this more later this week, let's at least all agree that teasing the entrance of the X-Men universe for a boner joke is still going to get a massive middle finger from the fans.
In that case, deservedly so, but I still wish people would just learn to enjoy the presentation of the studio and not get caught up in their own wants and needs and then get disappointed when the studio didn't anticipate said wants and needs. But this comic book, as old as it is, I absolutely think it was a good idea for us to talk about this instead of House of M. House of M was already done. That's why we switched. I was going to do House of M, but Jesse did it on a syndicated source material, which is in the archives. I actually think we did better service to gearing up for the show by talking about this book. So I'm glad we did it, and I had a fun time talking about it with you.
I did too. Like I said, It is a really good book. It's available on Hoopla Digital for those who want to, just give it a quick look through.
It's also free. It's also free to borrow on Comixology if you have a Comixology account. Which, if you're a comic book reader, I absolutely would recommend getting Comixology. You can read a lot of free comics that way. All right, what do we got going on this week? Well,
I was just say, for those who are fans of WandaVision and want to know more about where that story came from, this is definitely a book to check out.
Tomorrow, speaking of WandaVision, we'll be talking Zack Snyder's Justice League on Damn You Hollywood. Wednesday, our afternoon show will be myself, Robert Winfrey, Alexis, and Andrew. Friend of the show, Andrew Graham. We'll be talking WandaVision. I have things to say. And then myself and Jesse Starcher will be reviewing the new Rob Zombie album. Alexis, shake your ass and smoke some grass. The Lunar Ejection Kool-Aid Eclipse Conspiracy. Do you like Rob Zombie?
Honestly, I thought that was your weird segue into telling me to start pimping my company.
Nope. But
I think that answers your question.
Okay, not a huge Rob Zombie. Were you a White Zombie fan at any given time, or just like this? None of that music appeals to you?
It's really not my thing, and the less said about my opinion of Rob Zombie as a filmmaker, the better.
Moving on.
Sorry, I'm not a fan of horror exploitation, which is his style. It's like, I get there's fans for that kind of thing. It's not my cup of tea.
Not that I want to do a huge tangent because I want to wrap this up before midnight, but did you hear he's doing a Munsters movie?
I'm going to go throw my head through the drywall.
Terrific. Speaking of wanting to throw your head through a wall, Fastlane was this past weekend. We'll review it this Thursday. Me and the Podsmen. Oh boy, Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton. A match so bad, even though I started a commentary for it, I deleted it immediately after. Yikes. And then in the evening, myself and Pat Mullen will be doing our last official chapter of the history of heavyweight boxing before modern times. We'll be talking the Klitschko brothers. All righty. Friday, the first episode of Invincible on Amazon Prime drops. So I asked Jesse to whip up one of them syndicated source materials where him and Ronnie discussed Invincible Volume 1, which I think is called Family Matters. So that's going to be dropping Friday the 26th. Last week was St. Patrick's Week. We did Grimm's Fairy Tales, The Irishman, Fiddler's Green, 3 Cheers, woo, for 30 years. And Jesse dropped an Unspoken Issues, Transformers number 80. So that's all in the archives. All right, go ahead and do your plugs in 10 words or less. Go.
All right, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic. Still on the fence about whether or not we'll be on the road later this year, but hey, we got some brand new products that just hit both of our Etsy and our Handmade at Amazon store, including our new Wizard of Oz pieces, something I have wanted to make for ages. Really happy we finally got it underway. And hey, as we're getting into spring, just a little heads up in advance that we will be doing a big sale for Memorial Day weekend. I know that's a little ways off, but go ahead and mark your calendars. Everything in the shop is going to be 15% off. And again, that is both shops. Go ahead and pay attention to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for future updates. We'll be announcing more details of the sale as we get a little bit closer to that. And again, we got a bunch of brand new merch that's hitting the stores. We're also restocking a few of our favorite items, including some of our always popular Monopoly bracelets with certain colored beads. So go ahead and check that out as well. Again, that's Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fandom meets fashion at the intersection of geek and chic.
Lastly, I just want to remind people to go ahead and click the link embedded in the description for AmazonMusic.com. That's getamazonmusic.com/W2M network to get your free 30 days on us of AmazonMusic.com, a great selection of streamable music. Almost anything that you can find on Apple Music or Spotify, you can find on Amazon Music, so you're not losing anything. And if you're already an Amazon Prime member, it really pays to be all synergistic with your streamable things. And so why not have a Kindle and an Amazon Music and an Amazon Prime and an Amazon Grocery, whatever the hell it's called. Get AmazonMusic.com/W2M network to find all the great music that you enjoy, that we talk about on the Metal Hammer of Doom and elsewhere. And we've plugged on many of, all the soundtracks. We plug on Damn You Hollywood and TV Party. It's all there for you. Get Amazon Music on us. Get AmazonMusic.com/W2M network. All right, that's it. Next week is Pacific Rim week. We'll be talking, myself and Christian will be talking Pacific Rim Tales from Year Zero. You don't know what a Pacific Rim is. I'm going to learn them all about it. But until then, for Alexis Hejna of Honeysuckle Rose Creations, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.